Welcome to How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast, a mix of both solo episodes and expert interviews. Our ideal listener is an early career, ambitious, and passionate online language services provider. She is committed to professional growth and achieving success in the fiercely competitive translation and interpreting industry. She balances multiple responsibilities with resourcefulness, values mentorship, is open to learning, and investing in her professional development journey. She embraces technology and seeks to optimize workflow, eager to connect with like-minded peers and build out her professional network. She is determined to overcome challenges and become a sought-after freelance translator. And here's your host, medical translator and translator business mentor, Jason Willis-Lee.
Meet Luke Komiskey, founder and CEO of DataDrive, with over a decade of experience in data analytics consulting and a track record of empowering more than 150 organizations. Luke helps fast-growing companies gain their data advantage without the cost or complexity of building an in-house team. He's on a mission to eliminate the overwhelm of traditional data strategy by delivering scalable, insight-driven solutions through a facilitative, client-first approach. Whether it's surfacing ROI, guiding smarter decisions, or helping teams ask better questions, Luke and his DataDrive team make data work clearly, quickly, and affordably. And welcome to Freelancer Training on How to Find More Direct Clients, a podcast hosted by myself, Jason Willis-Lee, the show that makes digital marketing easier and much more fun using the perfect combo and just the right dose of business strategy and tech. I'm your host, Jason Willis-Lee, digital marketing specialist, and today I'm very excited to talk to welcome Luke Komiskey. He is a highly experienced data analyst, and he brings a very, very unique perspective to our discussion today. Luke, welcome to the show. Finally, we got on the same timeline. How are you today?
Good, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Just as an icebreaker, could you talk a little bit about your personal and business journey? How did you get into data analysis and what's happening with AI? What's happening with your industry because of AI?
Yeah, great question. A lot of things are changing really quickly. So for context, I have a background in computer science. And when I was leaving the university, I think at that time, the popular routes to go at that stage was either going into mobile application development, or data analytics was really starting to become a newer, hotter topic that people were starting to look into, especially because I think so much of traditional data warehousing tools were starting to turn more towards the reporting, data visualization end of it, and trying to democratize access for people of all technical skill sets, even non-technical people. And so what I really loved about going into a data career at that stage was, although I have a technical background, I definitely always felt like I wanted to be, talking with people, understanding more about their businesses, like what makes it tick. And really why I've leaned into during my own career path of moving from, just a data engineer at a big multinational organization to moving into a consultancy and eventually, doing what I'm doing today is I get an opportunity as a consultant to be able to go in and work on some really complex technical math problems in the realm of computer science and data analysis. But I also get an opportunity to talk with a lot of business leaders to understand how do they think and work through their unique industry and be able to apply some data concepts to that to almost systematize their intuition is the way I like to think about using data to help get their decisions to be a little bit more approachable for other people to make those decisions in a self-service world.
I love systemization, and I'd love to systemize my business more. Could you just paint a picture for my audience? I mean, maybe they're not so used to this data analysis thing, and I'm bringing out a framework where I just told you the D is the D of the bridge. I'm bringing out a bridge framework where B is branding, R is P2P relationships, I is impact, D is data, so that's you, G is business growth, and E is efficiency. What does a business look like without analyzing data? Is it just higgledy-piggledy, haphazard, not taking decisions like random decisions without being based on data? What is business growth like without someone like you analyzing, crunching the data?
Yeah, I think early on for any business, and this can really happen at any scale, but especially early on when it's a founder-led business or a very small amount of people that need to exchange information, it's really easy for an organization to exist with gut-based decisions. Somebody just sees an opportunity, the entrepreneur sees the opportunity and goes after it. But any organization is going to inevitably run into this either scaling of people or scaling of their operations where there is going to be a lot of data swimming around within their organization, right? You've got various applications that you're going to start spinning up, whether a customer relationship management system, ERP system for tracking inventory, financials with things like QuickBooks. There's always these different data points that are going to start to uh, bubble up within that organization. And the operations are just going to become that much more complex for one person to be able to make all of their gut-based decisions that really got them there. And so naturally, as part of that transition for organizations, it's data as this inevitable discussion around how are we actually going to use our data to make us smarter, make us more informed decisions, especially at scale when you bring in a lot of people that all have to make their own decisions in a vacuum. You want to give them all the access to data in the world so that they can make their best educated guess on what is the right decision our business needs to move towards, especially right now, like in with what we're going through within AI is everything's changing so fast. So you've got COVID, you've got AI. You need to understand, of course, the past trends of what are happening, but you really need to understand like what's happening right now and be able to make some decisions off what the data is telling us that we need to start focusing our attention towards these profitable product lines or moving towards this customer segment. That's where the data can really help us guide in those decisions.
Can you outline for us how can a company or how can just a single solopreneur, because I talk to a lot of single solopreneurs, how can companies gain a competitive edge by outsourcing the data? Is it avoiding expensive hires? Is it achieving quick insights without the usual tech headaches? What is the edge in hiring someone like yourself, or a company like yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So overall, just like for any kind of data strategy, there's a lot that goes into it because you talk about a data strategy and it really goes that down to what are our applications that exist today? What are our business processes that are creating these data points? How trustworthy is that data point? Who's creating that data point? And then that's just like the beginning of the funnel because once you get into data analytics, you start hearing terms like uh, ETL, about extraction of information, landing that into a data warehouse, making a reporting platform on top of that. It can very quickly become a very
Can I just
complex.
stop you? Could you just expand ETL for my audience who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. ETL stands for extract, transform, load. It's just a pretty common ELT or ETL is a very common acronym for basically moving data from point A to point B.
Okay.
Uh, and so there's a lot of, as you can tell, just complex acronyms and complex concepts that go into building out an entire data strategy.
Right.
And most organizations become, pretty overwhelmed with where do I start? And then especially it's even more complex when you go out to of like what tools do I need to bring in or what people do I need to hire? Because that answer for any consultant is going to be it depends. There's a lot of different pieces you need to put into the puzzle. What my organization DataDrive provides is something called managed analytic services, and it was really born out of this need of a lot of organizations find themselves in this place where there is a lot of data that they know they want to be taking advantage of, but they don't know who to hire. They don't know what platforms to go out and start implementing or even start acquiring software. And so what our managed analytics services provides is essentially a fractional data team. So all the different skill sets that I can certainly go through, but there's a lot of different skill sets that need to go into hiring a data team, as well as all of the software packages, all the different ETL again, warehousing, reporting platforms. Uh, all of those things basically get packaged into a service so that organizations and leadership can start taking advantage of the data that they're already creating without all of the headache of having to go out and do the long hiring cycles, trying to figure out how to like manage and retain a data team that has a skill set that frankly a lot of people have no idea how to manage, as well as all of these vendor relationships. We package that all up so that organizations can get what they want out of their data, which is informed decisions that their people can make decisions very quickly.
Let me put a very specific case to you because this will be highly relevant. What data should somebody, a solopreneur, a man or woman, making 4K a month, so it's a 50K business, let's pull it back. So before they're scaling from 50K, say, to 75K, they want to go from 4K months to 6K months. What data should they be tracking exactly in their business and why?
Yeah, I think at that level, and I'm assuming that's, yeah, like you mentioned, it's a solopreneur operation. So it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be anything terribly fancy with, hiring people or even expensive software at that point. As a solopreneur at one point going through that motion, I think some of the best data that you can start looking at is, for sure you've got some kind of robust financial system behind the scenes. Maybe it's in spreadsheets, but hopefully it's in something more of an actual financial accounting system.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think at that time, the personal examples for me that I was looking at was a lot of the financials and also time tracking. I was in a business that's very much consulting oriented. And so it was a mix of both of those that I would even being a professional data professional, I would bring those into spreadsheets to understand what are some of my most profitable customers, my customer segments that I'm finding success in, being able to trace that back to like where did I find those people so I can figure out marketing channels that were actually effective. But I think when you start mixing together just at that level your financials of profitability as well as your time tracking to figure out operational efficiency, that'll ultimately give you a good view into what, especially at that point, like what are the different service offerings or customers that I'm going after that are actually going to get me to that 7 8K mark from where I am today.
Could you recommend your number one, your top financial reporting tool and your top time tracking tool? Would that be possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think for everyone, it's a definitely like it depends on whatever works best for you. For me personally, I have always been with QuickBooks Online. It's not like I would go out of my way to like recommend them. That I think they're just a good system that's worked well for me. And then time tracking systems, it's evolved over time. Currently, our team uses Harvest, but I know there's a lot of other time tracking tools in the market, and definitely encourage just trialing it out and see what works best for how your business actually runs. Because even early on, I remember I would pick a lot of free tools and then we just eventually upgrade into some more of these paid tools that make
Right.
our life easier. And as a data professional, I'm always asking myself, what about data accessibility, right? So is there some kind of API that I can call that eventually I could start to roll up and aggregate it up? Because for me, when you have a full-time team of employees and contractors, you want to be able to roll that up to understand how the overall business is doing, but also be able to segment that out. And that's why with these tools, I try to make sure there's an API or some way for me to pull the data out of those systems and put it into a reporting tool so I can start to mix and match some of these insights.
A lot of my people use tools called Toggle Track is one, and another is called Timestamp. So, similar to Harvest, I'm guessing it's a similar thing. Switch it
Yep.
on when you start your task, switch it off. And then we have our own financial management tool in the industry. There's a very nice tool called LSP Invoice. LSP means language service provider, so it's specifically for our kind of tribe, my tribe. So I got a link to that in the show notes as well. Give us a success story, Luke. Tell us an example of how a company in your world is winning with DataDrive. I know I recognized a couple of your clients on your list. I was just researching and I'm just trying to think of the one I recognized. It's gone, but
Crayola.
I recognized one in particular. Just tell us how. Tell us the outcome of the clients who work with you in terms of marketing analytics and maybe revenue management. How are you 80/20ing their business and saying, well, actually 80% of revenue comes from this 20% of clients? And are you getting into those conversations, or is it more do this, this, and this with your data and you'll get this outcome?
Yeah, yeah, we've got some two very uniquely different, interesting examples. So one's always a fun one that I love to talk about is we actually helped a Midwest U.S. Pizza franchise food, like a food chain. It's like a fast serve restaurant, and they had multiple franchise locations. So you've got different audiences of franchise owners that want to get insights into their own operations. And for us, like we were able to go after looking at their point of sale system, their customer loyalty system, their customer survey data, even get into some delivery data as well. So if you think about a pizza chain, there's a mix of people going into the store to eat the pizza. There's also the mix of delivery drivers that are going out to various places. When you get all of this data in place, you can really start to do more of this macro analysis where these individual stores and also the brand at large can start to analyze things like weather patterns, delivery driver scheduling, understanding just like the efficiency of routes. So it's like a very tactical operational question. But then also with point of sale data, you can look at what are the various like menu items that are actually popular. Is any of that driven by like seasonality in demand? You can look at the ROI on marketing campaigns. So when we push for a certain like you get free garlic bread, does that actually move the needle at all for us? And then even for customer loyalty is, the whole reason why companies have loyalty numbers is so you can kind of track the individual transactions of a single household. So
Mm.
being able to understand like when we give a free garlic bread, does that actually raise our average order value by $5? So we're basically making more because we have more bought in customers that are loyal to the brand. All of those are really basic examples, but sophisticated like use cases just by going after these various systems that, any kind of normal franchise chain would have to have in place. And it allows you just to like start being creative with the business owner about like what are the other opportunities that we haven't even begun to think about outside of just like what were sales yesterday, right? That's like a pretty basic question, but then you can start to expand that analysis even more.
Again, thinking about the solopreneur, the 4K solopreneur scaling to 6K, what kind of customer loyalty referral system would you be advising? Is it a Google business profile? Is it social proof on the website? Is it LinkedIn recommendations? What kind of system would you be recommending?
Yeah, yeah. For like the smaller scale piece of it, I think it's like at that level, it's smarter to probably analyze like the marketing channels that people are coming in on, so you can start to understand your
Right.
ROI. At that level, it really depends on your business model. But if you're running paid ads, if you're doing like organic referrals through whether like a Google Business Profile or Clutch or any other kind of like review sites, I think understanding your acquisition channels at that level is really important because as a guy that has, scaled to that point and beyond, it's important to understand that at the end of the day, there's probably going to be one or two channels that are really working well, very ROI positive. It's a pretty easy motion. And I know as an entrepreneur that has tried to build out 7 or 8 marketing channels at once, it's easier to focus in on like the one or two that are actually working.
Yeah.
So I think at that level, I think it's important to understand how am I getting my clients at that level and really start to put gasoline on those channels and focus in on those because I think you can get dangerously far, even above the 7-figure mark by just focusing on the one or two channels that seem to be working really well for you. I think a very common mistake I see at the like solopreneur journey is like everyone's trying to do everything because they see
Mm.
their big competitors doing that. And you have to understand they've got a lot more resources, they've got a lot more time in the market, and your superpower at that level is being able to like focus really hard on the things that are actually working for your unique messaging in the market.
I always feel that there's like a triangle. If I had a triangle here, and 90% of the iceberg, if you like, is the mass market, and that those are for the big businesses, and the 10% at the top are more for the small businesses. And I feel that the 10% at the top, that little tip, that small triangle, is maybe 60% of the spend, and 40% will be the mass market. Do you feel that more affluent customers, the premium customers, have different buying channels? They buy their services differently. I'm thinking about my industry, translation, interpreting, copywriting services, that kind of thing. Do you feel in your journey and I'm guessing you're multi-six with about 4 employees. I'm just guessing your situation now. So I'm talking to people, that kind of person, the 50K person trying to get to 75, maybe the 75 trying to get to 100. It's very difficult in my industry to make six figures these days because there's just less work. But my question is, do you feel that the premium customers, the more affluent customers, right at the top there, the tip of the pyramid, are using different buying channels, or do you feel it's more homogeneous?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there is, certain, yes to your question. I think there's going to be certain channels that are going to bring about either more profitable customers or more affluent, spending customers. Like I think about early on in even my own journey of a like freelance data professional, it would be easy for me to go to a site at that time. I was like Upwork and Fiverr, uh, and you kind of get what you pay for on those platforms, right?
Right.
There's an opportunity where you're trying to very public, transparent pricing that it's everyone's kind of bidding against each other, and it creates a natural race to the bottom in terms of like bidding profiles that you're trying to win on these sites. And certainly you can through sheer effort and sending out pricing proposals try to rise above the cream of the crop, but it's really hard. You're always having the pressure to like move your pricing down.
Hmm.
I think for me, like when I was able to graduate outside of trying to find work through that, and for my personal journey, it was a lot of on LinkedIn through that type of social work is through partner channels. So finding other organizations that have customers that are trying to look for people like me and getting that warm introduction, that allowed for more affluent but like less competition in that space because I already have somebody who like inherently trusts my brand because somebody else said a good thing about it. And I think that has like made my business cycle a lot easier when I'm thinking about kind of pivoting away from some of more of these like freelancer type profile type things. So yes, to your question, I think depending on kind of your channel, it will always be you will find through trial and error. You don't know until you just start testing it out. And this is where the data behind it becomes important. Is you'll definitely start to see those themes of like every time I get a customer through organic social or paid search,
Mm.
they have these type of budget expectations because like the way that they're shopping around, they're seeing different price points depending on their channel that they're going down. And so I think you can kind of play around with those different levers once you understand the marketing channel.
What do you do in DataDrive that gives you a talk about the edge? What do you do differently from your competition? How do you stay ahead of the game? And what kind of outcome-based selling do you do? What is it? Let's say we're in a sales conversation. I'm your prospect.
Mhm.
Sell me the sell me the sizzle of the sausage. Sell me the good night's sleep, not the mattress. Sell me the ice dripping down the side of the beer glass. You know what I mean? Just sell me the outcome. What is your outcome that you sell your prospects, and what do you do differently to make me trust you and not the next guy?
Yeah, I think that the big thing for us, and not to kind of go back to our primary service offering, is our managed analytics services is actually a very unique package solution in the data consulting space. I've been at this for a little over 8 years at this point, and half that journey has been traditional consulting of I can do data consulting work for you, and now I've pivoted a lot of my messaging just from themes that I was seeing around what organizations are experiencing. Like I mentioned, is it is tough for them to figure out how to start their data journey, how to package everything together, figure out who to hire. We did a number of traditional consulting engagements, and they uh, had very little idea of like after we handed off the final deliverables, like how to continue to maintain that. And that is where the opportunity around managed analytics services really came up. Is our unique selling point is around that we can sell the whole outcome of a data strategy. It's not just a tactical project that put a bow on it, you're done. It's more about helping them understand that being data driven is actually a journey that your organizations can continue to evolve and change the type of sophisticated questions that they're asking. And our service is really around a fractional data team that's going to be growing with you so that you don't have to go out and hire that necessarily. That is the edge for us and selling point in our market because we saw a lot of those early pain points with our early customers.
What is your pain point, your biggest pain point now? Getting customers, converting your prospect to what kind of keeps you up at night when you're looking at your own business? What are you struggling
Yeah,
with?
I think the biggest challenge is still the education piece
Mhm.
around what does it mean to have a solid data strategy. I think most people can understand that they probably want reporting and better understanding of how their business is running, but there's still, I think, a lack of awareness for people who don't live and breathe in this data analytics space about what all goes into that, right? They hear scary acronyms like ETL and warehousing and data engineers and data science, and it can become very overwhelming to the point of like, I just don't want to deal with it or I don't understand even how to start. So I think my biggest challenge is most people will talk to me thinking that they want to report, and me being able to diagnose that they're what they want is so much more, but getting them to realize what that journey is going to look like, it takes a lot of education. So like longer sales cycles to get people
Mm,
there.
got it. Let's go into a few quick fire questions, if that's okay. Just sort of spit out the first thing that comes into your head. I've just put
Of
together
course.
a few things related, what I think is related to your world. What is one data analysis tool that you use daily that you just can't live without? That you would die without this tool?
Yeah, the big one for me in my career has been, well, data visualization, self-service analytics has been a big theme throughout my data career. A popular one that I found early on in my career has been Tableau. There's a lot of other data visualization tools on the market, but Tableau is really for me stood as this extension of how I can start to see and understand my data without having to necessarily write a bunch of technical code behind the scenes to get there. It allows me to be in the flow of analysis. And I think the big learning I got from that versus my original career in more like technical data engineering and building pipelines is there's a ton of value in being able to show and not just tell people what's going on. So be able to have people be able to interact with the data, I think can go a long way and try to sell the value of data analytics. And Tableau has been one of those tools that allows me to move really fast with that.
What's the biggest myth people have when they come to you? These preconceptions. When you're in a sales meeting, they say, "Hey, Luke, is it like this?" And then you say, "Well, actually, no, it's not." What's the biggest myth that people come up with in
Yeah,
local
I think
data analysis?
the biggest one that I always have to like work against is I think data warehouse still has a very heavy feeling to it. When I talk about data warehousing, it feels like that's something that big companies do. It's something that takes years of implementation to get right. And yes, data warehouses are can be an important foundation for bringing your data together, but I think the biggest myth for people is helping them understand you don't need to wait 2 years to build this foundational piece before you get value. Is that we live in a world that we can do iterative value and keep building on this concept of the data warehouse. And a data warehouse doesn't need to be the scary concept that shuts down the conversation, but rather something you need to understand why it exists to begin with so that you can start answering so many cool other questions in your business, much like our pizza franchise did.
What's the limit for AI in terms of data crunching, do you think? How far can AI go? What's the next wave?
Yeah, I think right now, like our in my data industry, so much for like AI is trying to be applied to the data analysis piece of it. It's you know, how quickly can we get to a point where people can ask pretty basic questions of AI or not even ask a question at all, and AI is going to be able to find trends within our data. uh, that seems that like that is the moment we find ourselves in right now is all of the major vendors are rolling out at this point probably version 2 of their AI tool. Version 1 was a lot of marketing and flash and maybe missed expectations, and now I think we're starting to hit V2 of all of these natural
Mm.
language AI type processing things. I think what's interesting about AI in the data space is it still goes back to the fundamental problem that data strategy has always had is unless your data is sitting in a central spot, in a clean format, in a well documented format, AI isn't going to magically be able to fix bad data definitions, bad data inputs, disparate data sources. So your AI, while it can be powerful to be able to analyze your business for you, is going to be still very dependent on the challenge that's always been the crux of why people like me exist, is having your data in a trusted spot that people can access, even AI.
Best piece of business advice you've ever received, or maybe given to someone else, but I'm thinking more received from a mentor.
Yeah.
Best
Someone
piece of
along the way,
advice.
and I wish I could remember who, but I think somebody said to me that done is better than perfect, which I think is also just a very popular phrase. It's not like anyone came up with that, but
Yeah,
done
I've
is
had
better.
that said to me as well. But it's important, very important. Yeah,
Yeah,
because perfectionists want the thing perfect, and then I can relate to this. I'm guilty of this. I'm sure lots of other people are. Just getting it done, and then reiterating. Yeah, the book
yeah,
behind
and
me, it's not the book I published last year. That's not perfect. That's far from perfect. And I'm itching to do a version 2, but I just got it out, and it felt good to get something published, but I admit it has defects and shortcomings and could do with some more. One thing it could do with is a visual framework. How important are visual frameworks in your world? So taking someone, I guess it's more in the coaching consulting space, but you coach your clients, right? How
yep.
important is a visual framework to take them step by step? Because I'm pulling out this bridge from branding to relationships to impact to data to growth to efficiency. How important is that visually for people, do you think?
Yeah, it's incredibly important, especially in our industry. It's very technical facing. So the more I can put into basic visualizations about how data flows, how a business process is done, it helps people understand at least like where these data pieces are being created, because it can feel very technical when you're talking about it and waving your hands. But a lot of these like visual models of how data actually flows through systems it is incredibly helpful for especially for business leaders that they know they want this data, but they just don't know how to get there. Uh, and part of that is just mapping out like who is entering this data, why are they entering it, when are they expected to enter it. A lot of these really basic like documenting your business process as your business grow type steps is what a lot of the organizations we work with are like actively going through.
What's the first word that comes into your mind when I say AI? What's the first word that springs to mind?
I'll use a hyphenated word: game changing.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a sneaky one because that's two words. Luke, I'm very grateful for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Any final thought or takeaway for my audience? Again, that I'm leaning into that sort of revenue point because that's the kind of revenue point that I coach people from 4K to 6K and then 6K to 8K. What what would be your final takeaway in terms of data, in terms of really getting a handle, getting intentional about their business? Because I spend a lot of time drumming intentionality into people's minds and just not doing things in this haphazard, any old fashion. Really get to grips with what do you want, what are you optimizing for, get the goal, and then just reverse engineer from there.
Yeah, I think on that last point too is just being very clear about what are your key, KPIs, metrics that you're trying to track, and understand define the what and the why it's important to your business first. Because everything I just described about the data process is really just more of the tactical, like how do I get there?
Right.
But if you choose, especially like action-based metrics, things that you can act on because they are going to lead, like a lot of times people set goals for revenue. What are the activities we need to do below that to actually get to the revenue? Those are interesting questions to start thinking through, because we can track anything from a data perspective, but it's more about sitting down and defining what does your business actually need and how does it get there. Those are more human-based discussions you need to have with yourself and your other mentors about what's actually going to drive your business forward. We can measure anything, but you want to make sure you're measuring the right thing.
Right. Luke, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Where can my listeners connect with you and learn more about DataDrive? Where's the best place? Is it LinkedIn, your website?
Yeah, both. My website is godatadrive.com, godatadrive.com. And then I'm also very active on LinkedIn under Luke Komiskey. You can feel free to connect and message with me there.
All right, we'll get those links out in the show notes. That's great. Thank you so much. Let's wrap it up for today's episode of Freelancer Training on how to find more direct clients. Stay tuned for more engaging discussions on the ever-evolving landscape of language and digital marketing. Until next time, stay on your game. And don't forget to future-proof your career in the AI era. Bye from me, and thank you again to Luke Komiskey.
Here's a fun fact about Jason. Jason was born in Aberdeen, Scotland in the UK. Thanks for tuning in to the How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, why not head over to www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com to access all our tools and resources to monetize and future-proof your freelance translation business. And don't forget to hit the plus button in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or subscribe in Spotify to be notified when new episodes drop. For regular tips and insights, business strategy, or marketing techniques straight to your inbox, please sign up at www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com.